Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button to help the station continue to grow. Minnesota Timberwolves fans, we're going to take a detour away from the Vikings. I'm talking to the Minnesota Timberwolves fans right now. Did you see the game last night between the Timberwolves and the New York Knicks? New York Knicks defeat the Minnesota Timberwolves 133-107. Karl-Anthony Towns goes for 32, 20, and 6. He gave it to the Wolves last night. Credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves organization, giving Karl-Anthony Towns a montage of memories before the game, and they gave him another one during a timeout or something. So they gave him 2 presentations last night, showing their appreciation for the work that he's put in when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves organization. I've got a message for the Minnesota Timberwolves fans tonight. And this is Unconventional Playbook. Again, I don't have a horse in the race other than being a fan. I don't have a lot of relationships within the organization. I don't have a lot of relationships on the Minnesota Timberwolves team. I have a history with the Minnesota Timberwolves, myself and Flip Saunders. But other than that, I really don't have a whole lot invested in the Minnesota Timberwolves as an organization in terms of relationships. So I get to give it to you real. There are going to be some people out there that are going to give you a hard time, obviously, because the Minnesota Timberwolves traded Karl-Anthony Towns for DiVincenzo and Randall. Julius Randall. And so because the trade early on looks like the New York Knicks are the better for the trade because they're looking pretty good right now. Karl-Anthony Towns is looking pretty good right now. Julius Randall, not so much, not looking terrible, but not so much. Donte DiVincenzo is trying to find himself. So it looks like early on that the New York Knicks have gotten the better of the trade. So there's going to be some people out there that's going to tell you that you shouldn't be upset. They're going to tell you that it's too early to evaluate the trade. They're going to tell you that you are overreacting for being upset about the trade. You've got people talking about the Timberwolves did too much to honor Karl-Anthony Towns last night at the game. You're going to have a lot of people tell you that. And most of the time, when you hear that verbiage or you have people telling you that, they're on the side of Karl-Anthony Towns should have been gone, and this was a good trade for the Timberwolves. And they know that it stinks right now. They get it. They're smart. So the next thing they're going to say is you got to let this thing play out. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for saying that, because you do somewhat have to let it play out. But you have a right to be upset. You know, I always say when you pay your money to go to a game, you should want maximum entertainment value for the ticket that you spend. These tickets are not cheap. So people that don't pay for tickets have no right to tell somebody that is putting down their hard-earned money, not to have an opinion, to think a certain way. If you're upset about the trade right now because of what the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking like, you have a right to do that. Now, I'm not on the side of people saying anything to players when they're walking off the floor or throwing popcorn at them or throwing drinks at them. You don't have a right to do that, but you have a right to boo. You have a right to be upset, and you have a right to be mad that the team is not playing well. You also have a right to be upset that the team played like garbage last night and Karl-Anthony Towns flourished. You have a right to do that. And I've always said, when the trade went down, that I didn't like it. And I understand the financials of it, that it gives the Timberwolves more cap flexibility in the future. And that is true. But you're giving up a really good team with chemistry for salary cap flexibility. So if that's the goal, if you wanted the salary cap flexibility, then live with the results now. Live with the results now, because you're not going to get the same chemistry, but you've got your salary cap flexibility. And I love that crutch, because that's what it is. It's a crutch. It's a crutch to feel like you're the smartest guy in the room and you know something that somebody else doesn't know when you try to throw out the term salary cap flexibility. Now, when you put paper to pen and you look at where the salary cap is going to be in a couple years, the Timberwolves, they do have more salary cap flexibility. That is not a lie. That is not an illusion. That's not something that's thrown out there just to throw it out there. It is the truth. This is Unconventional Playbook. We're going to give you the truth out there. But my next comment is going to be having the crutch of having salary cap flexibility is only going to last so long. Let's see what you do with that salary cap flexibility. I've always said Karl-Anthony Towns was not an immovable player. He was someone that wasn't hands off. If you had an opportunity to get a good trade to make the Timberwolves better, I'm all in. But the trade didn't make them better. As is right now, the trade didn't make them better. You messed with chemistry. And people will always come at you with this lame comment too, that Karl-Anthony Towns wasn't getting you to the finals, but he got you. He was part of the puzzle that got you to the Western Conference Finals. And if you're the Golden State Warriors, if you're a team like that has a dynasty, the Boston Celtics, when you have a team that has that tradition and you have numerous stops in the Western Conference Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, you have a blueprint in the past that can help you get there because you've done it numerous times. The thing that I hate is the Minnesota Timberwolves doesn't have that tradition. They've been there twice, once with Sam Cassell, and then look at the Timberwolves last year. So we don't have this repeated roadmap of getting to the Western Conference Finals. We don't have that tradition. Beggars can't be choosy. When we get an opportunity to put together a squad that gets there, you have to find ways to build upon that squad and keep the nucleus of that squad together. I've said it a million times. You may not agree with it. And I'm not talking about salary cap flexibility. The whole thing about salary cap flexibility is to get you near or close to the promised land. Well, the Minnesota Timberwolves was near or close to the promised land. So they have chosen to take a couple steps back for salary cap flexibility at the expense of possibly getting back to the Western Conference Finals. Whether you think the Minnesota Timberwolves would have been a finals team with Karl-Anthony Towns, that will never be known. But we do know that they were a Western Conference Finals team last year with Karl-Anthony Towns. You can't dispute that. So my next question would be, what are they going to be this year? Are they a Western Conference Finals team next year? What is the salary cap flexibility going to get the Minnesota Timberwolves? Let's see what they do, because this is what people that supported the trade will tell you. They will talk about salary cap flexibility. I'm like an elephant. I got a long memory. So I'm going to file that away, and I'm going to see what the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to do with that salary cap flexibility that we have right now that's so valuable that we sacrificed another possible appearance that would give us the opportunity at a finals appearance this year. Watch the Timberwolves play. There is something more going on with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Did you see the start of the game last night? Julius Randall had to take every shot. And if you have it DVR'd or however you recorded the game, go back and look at the other Wolves players while he's dribbling between his legs 50 times and taking shots. The body language is so bad. The body language is so bad because Julius Randall wants to do it on his own. The chemistry is bad. And Dante DiVincenzo has not been Dante DiVincenzo because he wishes he were back on the Knicks. Did you see the emotions in the preseason game with the Timberwolves and the Knicks, how that went down? Because Dante DiVincenzo wishes he was still there with his teammates from college. And don't get it twisted. The the New York Knicks had a good year last year. And so he'll never admit it, but he wishes that he was still back there. So you got a guy that doesn't want to be in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. You can tell that by his body language. And then you have a guy that wants to do it all by himself. Chemistry is bad. And don't think I coach the game for a living. Don't think that the guys on that team are happy with that. I can pretty much tell you right now that a good portion of the locker room was not in support of that trade. You could see in the welcome that the Minnesota Timberwolves gave karl-Anthony Towns last night. And I'm not talking about the presentation or the montage. I'm talking about the welcome that he got from his players. And they went out of their way to make sure that karl-Anthony Towns had a good night last night. I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them to have made sure that karl-Anthony Towns had a good game last night. He went for 32 and 20. Not only did he go for 32 and 20, but don't get it twisted, he's playing center. So he went up against the four-time defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. The guy that the Minnesota Timberwolves decided to keep over karl-Anthony Towns. He gave it to him last night. This is not speculation on my part. This is not being a fan of karl-Anthony Towns. This is Unconventional Playbook. This is fact. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. He gave it to the Timberwolves, but more specifically, he gave it to Rudy Gobert last night. How many times in big games is Rudy Gobert not going to show up that Minnesota Timberwolves fans are going to continue to tolerate? He doesn't show up in big games. People said it about Big Cat, and for some reason, people throw their blinders on when it comes to Rudy Gobert. The Minnesota Timberwolves made a choice to keep Rudy Gobert over karl-Anthony Towns. And when the trade went down, I said they kept the wrong Timberwolves. And now it's panning out. It's panning out exactly the way I said. See, there's chemistry issues. And this is not about winning an NBA championship. Because no matter whether they traded karl-Anthony Towns or had karl-Anthony Towns still in the fold, I don't think the Minnesota Timberwolves would have been favored to win a championship. But they were a hell of a lot closer with karl-Anthony Towns, which gave them a better chance to possibly win a championship with karl-Anthony Towns. Now, if you want to play the flexibility in the salary cap game, go ahead. But I'm going to hold you to that because I want to see, with that flexibility, when you choose to take a step back from being on the doorstep of the finals, you better have a good plan. You better have a good plan. There's only so much time you can kick the can down the road. If you have salary cap flexibility, and that is so valuable, if it's so valuable, you want to do something with it because I'm going to hold you accountable. All the players, all the fans that are in support of karl-Anthony Towns being gone because of it made financial sense. It's salary cap flexibility. We don't want karl-Anthony Towns making this much money. He's not worth it. Well, okay, I'll buy that. Let's see what you do with it. Let's see, because right now, currently constructed, the team is not as good. We can say that. But also, you can say, well, give it. First it was, here's the funny thing. First it was, you got to give it about 25 games. Well, we're at 26 games right now. We're at 26 games, and it ain't looking good. So now the situation is, let's see it pan out. You know, you got to give it a couple years, see what we can do with the salary cap flexibility. Well, okay. Let's see what we do with the salary cap flexibility. Because right now you've got a 4-time defensive player of the year who in big moments doesn't show up. We saw that in the playoffs last year. Then you have Jaden McDaniels, whose offensive game is like a roller coaster. You really can't count on him for offense. You got Mike Conley, who is on the verge of retirement. So I don't know what he's going to do. You got Rob Dillingham, who's trying to find minutes. For whatever reason, they don't want to play him every night. So he's trying to find minutes. And then you got the face of the franchise in Anthony Edwards. Now, I'm a big fan of Anthony Edwards. I think the city of Minneapolis and the Minnesota Timberwolves are very lucky to have a talent like that. But Anthony Edwards likes to talk. You know, he likes to talk, and he doesn't show up all the time. But he's a dog. He's a dog. He plays with a lot of hearts. The question you have to ask yourself, you're the Minnesota Timberwolves organization, when you got rid of Big Cat, you basically said, we're giving you the keys to the franchise, Anthony Edwards. And so you have to ask yourself, is Anthony Edwards ready for the keys to the franchise? Is he ready to be the man? Is he ready to be that leader in the locker room? Is he ready to deal with all of this adversity? He's the man now. Before he could lean, he was the man last year, don't get me wrong. But before he could lean a little bit on karl-anthony Towns had been the face of the franchise. They were a good Batman and Robin. Now, essentially, he's by himself because Julius Randall's not Robin. Julius Randall is not Robin. So a lot of the weight, and he's a different personality. So a lot of the weight falls on Anthony Edwards. And so you have to ask yourself, right now, at the age that he is and the development where he's at status-wise, is he ready to carry the load of the Minnesota Timberwolves through this transition period, through some tough times? Is he ready? Because when you made that trade, that's basically what you said to Anthony Edwards. This is your squad, your team. And this is not about talent. This is not an indictment on talent. I just don't know if that young kid is ready for that. If things are great, absolutely. But just listening to some of the comments in the locker room and past comments that we've gotten from Anthony Edwards, I don't know if he is mature enough to handle that weight. But he ain't got no choice. Because we're going to find out. This is not going to be an easy season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Finchie doesn't even have an answer. I mean, right now, he's letting Julius Randall do whatever he wants to do. You could go back and watch the first 5 minutes of that game and look at Julius Randall and what he was doing. And then at the same time, look at the other 4 Timberwolves on the floor. There's a lot going on in that locker room. People aren't happy. Look at the body language of Dante DiVincenzo when he's playing. He wants out right now. He's still wishing he was back in New York. You don't, especially when you are a franchise that like the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you struggle to just even be a team that's over 500 for years, and you struggle, and you finally get to the doorstep of success, the doorstep of the finals. I don't care what the salary situation is, you don't make the move quickly. I'm not saying you don't make the move, but it's got to be the right move. And I'm here to tell you, currently constructed, this is not the right move. And if you play the card is, well, we got to let this thing play out. Well, okay, let's have it play out. But the longer you take to utilize that salary cap flexibility, I'm going to hold you accountable. If you're going to throw the salary cap flexibility card, I'm going to see what the Minnesota Timberwolves, why it was so important to make the move and get that salary cap flexibility. You guys know I'm not afraid to come back on here and say when I'm wrong. This is Unconventional Playbook. This is about sports. I'm no expert, but I've been around the game long enough to know how it's played and know how important chemistry is and know a championship foundation when I see it. And the Minnesota Timberwolves needed some salary cap flexibility. But you have to think about what you're doing, because once you give up that chemistry, you have to have something else you could go to. And right now, the trade is looking bad. The chemistry is looking bad. And I just think it's going to be an up and down year for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, did you see the game last 133 to 107? Anthony Edwards, 17 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Karl-Anthony Towns, 32, 20, and 6. At your house in front of the Minnesota Timberwolves fans. So what I'm saying to you, Minnesota Timberwolves fans, you have a right to feel the way you feel. Don't let anybody tell you any different, because it's not looking good right now. And if you're going there paying your hard-earned ducats, supporting the Timberwolves when they have home games, you have a right to analyze what they're doing and have an opinion on what they're doing. And right now, it's not looking good. And Big Cat is looking pretty good. And the New York Knicks are looking like they won this trade. But I know it's early. And I still don't think the New York Knicks are going to beat the Boston Celtics in the final. So the people that support the people that supported the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, they're going to wait for that moment when the New York Knicks goes up against the best team in the NBA, and then they're going to say, see, I told you, Karl-Anthony Towns is not a champion. When the New York Knicks, they don't have enough. But here's what I'm telling you. It's going to take the Boston Celtics to knock out the New York Knicks. They won't be knocked out by anybody else. You can book that. And you can book this also. As constructed, the Minnesota Timberwolves, as constructed right now, we have taken a significant step back. And I'm just keeping it real. We've taken a significant step back. We will not be a Western Conference Finals team this year. You're talking about we wouldn't have been a finals team with Big Cat. Well, we're not even going to be a Western Conference championship finals team this year. We won't even make it to the Western Conference final as this team is currently constructed. Why? Not because they're not as talented, but there's something going on with the Minnesota Timberwolves organization. There's something going on in that locker room. There's something going on with the chemistry. You can see it in the coaching. You can see it in the body language. You've got guys that want to be there. You've got guys that don't want to be there. You've got guys that want to do it all. You've got guys that are content with doing nothing. And Finchie is overseeing it all. And he's got to find a way to get this team through that. I coach, and I know the modern player, and I'm telling you right now, that in itself is going to be a challenge and is going to be tough for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But hey, I can be wrong. What do you think, UP Nation? Put your comments, put your thoughts in the comments, man. Tell me, come at me. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. But don't hide as the season progresses. Don't hide as the season progresses. I even think they're going to have a hard time just getting in the playoffs currently constructed. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We will make sure to see you when we see you. Latrey, take us home, man.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?